Global in-game leaderboards have been a staple of many modes in Call of Duty for well over a decade. Yet, in Black Ops 4, leaderboards are a shadow of their former selves. Users are unable to track their stats against players globally. Furthermore, the most basic of stats, such as the highest round survived on a particular zombies map, are completely absent from the leaderboards. Many players waited months for some sort of update to this leaderboard system. After all, it was surely incomplete. Fast forward to April 2019, nearly 6 months after the game's release, when the developers finally made a statement on Reddit about both combat records and leaderboards in Black Ops 4. They apologized for the radio silence regarding combat records in multiplayer, and ended up reworking that feature into their mobile companion app. However, regarding leaderboards, they doubled down on the inadequate iteration currently in place. In defense of the BO4 leaderboard system, the studio stated, "We took a new approach to making leaderboard stats more meaningful to players who want to know how they stack up against their peers." Now, this was an unusual sentiment to express, considering the only new addition made to the system was the tracking of stats against recent players, as if anybody cares about the stats of random recent players like Sackman85. The inclusion of this feature is an acceptable addition, except it seemingly came at the expense of other more important leaderboard aspects. The removal of global entries, in addition to having fewer essential stats being tracked, is in no way quote-unquote more meaningful to players. For the zombies mode, a player's highest round for a specific map is, simply put, the most basic and crucial statistic, and it's a stat category that has been the standard going back to the first ever zombies map in World at War over 10 years ago. In Black Ops 4, you cannot see your friends or anybody else's high round on, let's say, Blood of the Dead. But you could see the total rounds, kills, or headshots of friends and recent players, with a hard cap of 200 player entries for these two categories as well. This is a bit puzzling since the previous zombie games had really solid leaderboards. World at War tracked both rounds and score, Black Ops 1 followed suit, and even allowed players to view the leaderboard entries of players in public lobbies. Then Black Ops 2 had a respectable expansion of the system, as there were separate leaderboard categories for varying amounts of players in the game, along with tracking games past round 99, and even offering an array of other player stats. Black Ops 3 was very similar to that system as well. A simple eye test shows that there is something centrally different between Black Ops 4 leaderboards and its predecessors. For the rest of the video, I'll be examining 4 common arguments that you might hear for the justification of Black Ops 4's leaderboard system, and I'll be offering counterpoints to each of these arguments, and hopefully lay out a decent case for the inclusion of global leaderboards in future Call of Duty titles. Argument number 1. Leaderboards are outdated. One might argue that leaderboards are obsolete or unnecessary in today's age. Admittedly, the gaming landscape and online social hubs have evolved in recent years, but the alternatives promoted through Black Ops 4 systems are simply inferior. One likely explanation for the stripped down leaderboards in BO4 is the introduction of the Black Ops Authenticity Stamp system in zombies, or the BOAS system for short. Counterpoint: the BOAS system is inherently flawed. At the Black Ops 4 reveal event in May 2018, Zombies director Jason Blundell stated that the BOAS system would, quote-unquote, help third-party high scoreboards. This assertion fails to account for the fact that the stamps only show that you achieved something under certain conditions. They don't actually authenticate that your game is legitimate. So, record keepers are still forced to sift through hours of gameplay just like before, despite Blundell thinking that this process can be somehow bypassed with the BOAS system. While there are quite a few player sets provided with the BOAS system, many of them are extraneous and don't offer much insight into your specific match. Additionally, your BOAS stats are only viewable through a shared code. Very few players are going to visit the Call of Duty website, log into their account, input the player ID, the gaming platform as well, type in the 4 arbitrary words, and then look through your stats. In contrast, global leaderboards in previous games provided quick and easy access to a player's rounds, and also allowed for lesser known, yet highly skilled players to get their name out as well. The BOAS system is a nice little feature to complement leaderboards, but should not be their replacement. It doesn't really improve upon traditional leaderboards in any significant way either. It's also concerning when the developers inadvertently force players to use third-party sites, which serve their purpose to an extent but have historically had their fair share of limitations and other issues. In-game leaderboards are crucial to adding replayability for any mode, as it encourages players to strive for their very best and promotes healthy competition among players. Argument number 2. Players don't engage with leaderboards enough to warrant its inclusion. In the Reddit post that I mentioned earlier, the lack of engagement with the combat records for previous multiplayer experiences was cited as a primary catalyst for their absence from BO4. While the same isn't explicitly said about leaderboards in the Reddit post, you can't help but read between the lines and think that leaderboards suffered a similar fate since they became increasingly more hidden with each new title. Counterpoint, make leaderboards halfway accessible. In both Black Ops 1 and 2, leaderboards are clearly present in the main menu for zombies, with text that literally reads leaderboards. Starting in Black Ops 3, they started to make it more difficult to find and navigate the leaderboards. There are considerably more button presses and scrolling necessary to even find them, in addition to leaderboard access being locked for players who are only level 1 in BO3. The solution here seems simple. There should be a more intuitive and accessible user interface design. Argument number 3. Leaderboards are just stats. In a tweet from November 2018, which was shortly after BO4's release, studio design director David Vonderhaar justified the leaderboard system, at least for the multiplayer and blackout components of the game, by saying that leaderboards are quote-unquote just stats. And these stats are indicative of who has more free time. I'm not going to argue with Vaughn. After all, he's the studio design director. He worked hard for that position. Tremendous determination, good at working in teams, and a whole lot of dedication. Or maybe he just had a lot of free time. Counterpoint, make stats more meaningful and consider the social impact of leaderboards. As it stands, the BO4 leaderboards include a lot of meaningless stats, the type that might actually reflect who has more free time. Leaderboard stats in zombies like doors purchased or total headshots don't tell you anything valuable about a player, but there are stats that you can include in zombies or even multiplayer, which are good indicators of player skill and accomplishment. It's also important to consider the social aspect of leaderboards. If somebody thinks that they are just stats, then they glossed over the impact of leaderboards on the development of the community throughout the years. On your screen right now, there's an image of the top page from the Shidanuma leaderboards back in July 2011. The image may not mean much to you, but it actually tells you everything you need to know about the high round community back then. It's a perfect little time capsule which shows you things like how few people had the classic maps on BO1 at the time, with a player base of just over 100,000 for this particular map. It also shows how the co-op high rounds were very low, suggesting that strategies were not yet optimized, with the highest round being only 63. Then there are the names of the players on this front page, some of the great duos of the game back then. The name you might be most familiar with is Relax and End, who now has several million YouTube subscribers. He was able to establish a presence on YouTube because of how many people found him through his top ranks on the leaderboards back then. Leaderboards helped promote communication among players, helped the less experienced learn more about the game and the members of the community, and ultimately helped propel the growth of the high round scene. Then there's the few cheaters on the board like Noble Thread, which illustrates the long-lasting fight between the cheaters and legitimate players throughout the years, both with the same goal of obtaining recognition and outdoing their rivals, which ties in with the next point. Argument number 4. Leaderboards are rendered useless when inevitably filled with cheaters. It's no secret that many in-game leaderboards, especially on older titles, are filled with glitchers and modders. Sometimes this happens on the first day of a map's release, while in other cases, it might take a year or two before the boards are corrupted. However, there are some clean leaderboards throughout Call of Duty's history. For example, the Dead Ops Arcade 2 mode in Black Ops 3 has millions of leaderboard entries, with no cheaters anywhere near the top for consoles. This leaderboard system also manages to track your stats if you disconnect from a game, and there was even a leaderboard reset performed for the top few ranks after all the balance tuning patches were complete. If a mode like this could get it right, surely the others can as well. Counterpoint, moderate leaderboards occasionally. The removal of bladed cheaters is an obvious step in encouraging legitimate play and condemning cheating. Just taking a quick glance at the free run leaderboards on Black Ops 3 shows that the top 250 ranks have a level completion time of 0 seconds. That's an obviously illegitimate exploit. How about die rise on Black Ops 2? What are all these high rounds and colorful names? How about round 99 with one player on Black Ops 1? This leaderboard system is not meant to track solo games, so they are obviously modders. In a matter of seconds, roughly 1,000 beyond a shadow of a doubt cheaters were hypothetically removed from the leaderboards. Investing into some additional anti-cheating mechanisms and paying attention to player feedback regarding game-breaking exploits are other helpful steps that should be considered. It's impossible to get rid of every cheater, but certainly a greater effort could be made to discourage such behavior and keep the boards as clean as possible.
No one likes cheats, especially me.
Coincidentally, while editing this video, global leaderboards were added to the COD Companion app, kind of like the combat records. But as it stands now, the same second-rate stats like total kills and doors purchased are the only stats being tracked, in addition to the entries being a bit wonky and not displaying in the correct order. Now listen, I've barely played Black Ops 4 Zombies, so the lack of solid in-game leaderboards in this particular title doesn't affect me in any substantial way. But leaderboards in the past have meant a great deal to me, and I imagine they do for others as well. I have vivid memories of loading up Black Ops 1 and checking to see if any new names were on the first few pages of each of the map's leaderboards. It encouraged me to play the game at a higher level, and helped me form some great friendships throughout the years. I went from looking up to others on the leaderboards to eventually getting a few top ranks of my own, and then having people reach out to me for advice on how to improve. That sort of cordial and open dialogue amongst players which global leaderboards promoted is seemingly lacking with Black Ops 4, as everything seems much more insular. But maybe the days of leaderboards have just passed us by. We've entered into the digital domain with the Black Ops Authenticity Stamp System, and the mobile app for combat records, and various sites for record keeping and tournaments. I'm not under the delusion that traditional global leaderboards will ever be added to Black Ops 4. That's over and done with. But if this stripped down leaderboard system in Black Ops 4 is the standard going forward for Call of Duty games, then I think that's a shame.